Now let's look at Jamaica's murder rate since independence. These numbers are very sad. So under the heading, so we have the year, the number of murders, the actual number of murders, the population, Jamaica's population, murder rate per 100,000, global murder rate per 100,000, times the global average. This is Jamaica's. This is how much more, um, how do I explain this? Times the global average is the amount of murders per 100 Jamaica has more than the rest of the world has on average. Murder in relation to 1962. So this is the percentage increase. Well, I would say our decrease, but there's only 1 year of decrease. So the percentage increase in murders in relation to the 1962 figures, right? So again, we have color coded the years the JLP was in power in green, the year the PMP was in power in orange, yellow are election years in which an administration changed. All right. So let's start. So in 1962, Jamaica recorded 63 murders, right? The population at the time was 1.6 million. In 2023, let's go down. In 2023, Jamaica recorded 1,393 murders. That's 1,393 murders. However, we can't compare 1962 to 2023 just like that because the population in 2023 is 2.8 million and it was 1.6 million in 1962, right? 1.6 million. So that's like comparing apples and oranges. That's why the murder rate per 100,000 is important because it's a standard measure, it's a standard, measurement which we can compare year to year to find out how well the country is doing in terms of how it's managing its murders, right? So let's start in 1962. So in 1962, the JLP was in power. So between 1962 and 1971, the murders per 100,000 increased from 3.74, which is relatively low, to 7.69 in 1971, which is a 105% increase, right? So murders per 100,000, you will really see, looking at the numbers by themselves, you don't get a real understanding of how bad Jamaica's numbers are until you compare them to other countries that you'd expect to have like high murder rates. So further down in this analysis, you will see that Jamaica figures are really high compared to the rest of the world. Now, the global murder rate, I searched online and I could not find any figures until 2000, right? So in 2000, that's when I have the data from. So that's when we'll start doing the comparison between Jamaica and the rest of the world, right? So let's go. So in 1973, the murder rate per 100,000 was 11.93. This is under the PMP. Close to the end of their administration in 1979, the murder rate was 16.66%, an increase of 40%, right? Let's go 1980 election year, 1981 JLP's full year after the election. Let's backtrack a little. So in 1980, we see that this is the first huge spike in actual murders and also the actual murder rate. So in 1979, the actual number of murders was 351,000. 1989, it jumped to 889, which is more than doubled. That's more than 100% increase between the 2 years. And the population just changed by about 29,000 people, right? So the murder rate per 100,000 jumped from 16.66 to 41%. 41% in 1980. Now, we have always heard about 1980 being one of the bloodiest elections in Jamaica's history. So, moving on. So, in 1981, the murder rate per 100,000, and this is on the JLP, was 22.62. When they were close to the end of their administration in 1988, the murder rate was 17.58, a decrease of 22%. Now, while the murder rate per 100,000 has decreased from 22 to 17, it is still high, and the JLP maintained a double digit murder rate right throughout the 80s. When you compare to countries like Canada and countries like the US and other safe countries, are countries considered safe, they are in single digits and low single digits, by the way. So while the JLP reduced the overall murder per 100,000 from 22 to 17, 22% drop, it still averaged in the 20s, or it still averaged double digits. So it was a reduction, but it was high. It was still high. That's like being 100 pounds overweight and you reduce it to 80. You're still overweight by a lot. Moving on. 1989, an election year. 1990, the PMP's first full year, murder rate was 22.66, right? At the end of their, close to the end of their administration in 2006, the murder rate was 49.82, reaching as high as 62.54 in 2006, right? So it was a 120% increase in murders from 1990 until 2006, 120% increase in the murder rate. Well done, Mr. Politician man. You done a wonderful job at tear down the country, demolition man. So, our the country tore down itself, but politics did nothing to help. Politics, the PMP did nothing to stem the crime based on the numbers, right? So they come and they talk about crime fighting strategies, what they implemented, the success they had, but you left from a murder rate per 100,000 from 22.66 to 49.81 in 2006, 120% increase. You have done nothing. This is where the analysis will make a lot more sense when we compare it to the global figures. So in 2000, right? Jamaica's murder rate was 33.96. The global murder rate, that means the murder rate from all countries over the world, the average of the murder rate from all the countries over the world was 6.85, while we were at 33.96. So we average almost 5 times the number of murders per 100,000 than was recorded across the world. Let that soak in. And those figures continued. In 2005, our murder rate was 62.54. The, the murder rate for the world was 6.29. We were 10 times. 2005, we recorded 10 times the amount of murders per 100,000 that the world recorded in 2005. Our murder rate per 100,000 was 10 times what it was in the world. You're more likely to get killed in Jamaica than anywhere else in the world. That is what this is saying. You're likely to be murdered in Jamaica more than you're likely to be murdered in anywhere else in the world. 9 times as much, to be exact. 9.94. Huh? Right? We have battered the PMP. Let's go to the JLP. So in There's a 2007 was an election year. So between 2008 and 2010. So in 2008, the murders per 100,000 was 59.71 under the JLP. And in 2010, it went down to 52.93. So there was a reduction of 11%. But in 2008, it was 59.71. The global murder rate per 100,000 was 6.01. So 9.94. So basically 10. So we were 10 times higher than the rest of the world. In 2009, on the JLP, 68.81. The rest of the world, the murder rate was 6.01. So Jamaica was 10 times. Again, they love that number 10. Jamaica was 10 times higher than the global murder rate per 100,000 in the rest of the world. We're 10 times higher. On the JLP again in 2010, it was 6.05. For the rest of the world, 52.93. For Jamaica, basically 9 times higher than it is, the murder rate was in the rest of the world. And the numbers continue, right? Under both the PMP and the JLP, the numbers continue along the same line. Just a random number in the next PMP year, 2012. Murder rate per 100,000 was 39.93. The world was 6.11. The murder rate for Jamaica was 6.54 times higher than in the rest of the world. Figures continued. The JLP just choosing a random year. Bam. Landed on 2020. Murder rate 46.91. 46.91. Global murder rate per 100,000 5.61. So Jamaica recorded a murder rate that is 8.36 times higher than the murder rate across the rest of the world. And that is why they label Jamaica the murder capital of the world. Our murder rate is much higher than the global murder rate. Now let's go to the summary. We see that the average murder rate per year since 1962 under the JLP is 26.55. So what that means is that the average murder rate every year the JLP has been in power is 26.50 per 100,000, while the PMP is 32. So the PMP performed worse, but these both numbers are horrible. And when compared to what the murder rate is globally, we see that it's it ranges from between 6 to 10% higher. Jamaica, not higher, not percent. Jamaica's murder rate ranges from between 6 to 10 times higher than the murder rate recorded across the world. And in the next slide, we'll do some comparisons to some countries that you never believe we had a higher murder rate than. Now let's take a comparison of Jamaica's murder rate compared to some countries across the world over various years. So let's look at Afghanistan. First one. In 2021, Afghanistan murder rate per 100,000 is 4.02. Now, Afghanistan, whenever you think of Afghanistan, other persons think wars and death and destruction and lawlessness. That is, a lot to do with the Western media, but that is another story for another day. But Afghanistan's murder rate per 100,000 is 4.02 in 2021. Let's look at Jamaica for the corresponding year, 2021. Our murder rate is 52.13, right? That's 13 times higher than Afghanistan. All right, let's go down the list. Uh, mm, Argentina. Argentina's murder rate in 2022 was 4.309, right? Jamaica's murder rate, wrong. In 2022, 53. It's about 13 times higher than Argentina. Um, Australia 0.833 in 2022. We were 53. So Australia less than one. Who knew? I'm moving to Australia next year. Um, Going down the list. Brazil 20.606. It's kind of high. That's it, double digits, but still not as high as Jamaica. Jamaica is 53. Um, just keep going. Cameroon, a country in Africa, 4.537 in 2020. Let's look at Jamaica's corresponding figure in 2020. 46.91. So that's double. I'm sorry, that is like five times. 46.991. Cameroon was 4.5. That's about five times. What am I saying? That's like 10 times what Cameroon has. 10 times higher than Cameroon, because Cameroon is 4.5, it was 46.91. Canada, 2022, 2.273. Now, Canada has a reputation of being safe, and here it is. The numbers show that it's correct, because their murder rate per 100,000 is 2.273. In 2022, Jamaica's is 53. China, with 1 point something billion people, less than one in 2020. 2020, ours was 46.91. China, less than one. Let's go down. Cuba, 4.418. Cuba, that has been cut off from the rest of the world because of trade embargoes and so forth and so on. With the US, 4.418. 2019. In 2019, we were at 47.59, about 10 times as much murders as Cuba, our closest neighbor. Dominica, 26.121. We are double Dominica. Dominica is high, but we're double that. Or is it 53? Um, Going down the list, Ethiopia, 8.632 in 2012. Let's see what we were in 2012. 2012, under the PMP, we were 39.9. So that's about five times Ethiopia. Going down. Ghana, like Ghana 1.813 in 2022. We're at 53. So anyway, keep going. Haiti. Yes. Haiti. I was waiting for this one. Haiti, the so-called gang capital of the world. Haiti, or that is what has been told to us. Haiti, that we think about voodoo and guns and drugs and lawlessness and murder. Haiti's murder rate in 2023 is 40.845. Whenever we think about Haiti, we think drugs, guns, gangs. And again, that is because of the media. When we think Jamaica, white sandy beaches, Bob Marley, Usain Bolt, all the good things. Let's look at Jamaica's murder rate in 2023 compared to Haiti, which is the gang capital of the world. And I'm being sarcastic, by the way. 49.30. 49.30. So we are 9%, we are 9% higher than 80, or we have 9.30 higher than 80 murders per 100,000. Haiti, who is the gang capital of the world, most dangerous country in the world, Haiti. Jamaica has a higher murder rate per 100,000 than Haiti, right? Honduras, 35, high, still not as high as Jamaica. India, with 1 point something billion people, 2.832. In 2022, we are 53, so we're like 20, about 20, what? About Divide 53 by, call it 3. That's 1, about 17, 18 times higher than India, right? Iran, that we hear about wars and Iran is dangerous, 2.421 in 2014. Let's see what we are in 2014. We're at 36.09. Iran at 2.41, right? So we're like about 18 times higher than Iran in 2014. And here we are, Jamaica. It is 2022, 53.53. That's what my figure is. And that's the highest on the list, by the way. So can just go down the list. We see a lot of countries below zero. Kuwait, a lot of countries I've never heard about. Kosovo, 1.98 in 2021. It's in Europe in 2021. We were at 52.13. So most countries, a lot of countries, single digits. Some countries below one. Countries that, few countries in double digits. This country is high. Lesotho. This is in Africa. Never heard of this country before. 37.694 in 2008. 2008, 37.694. 2008. Let's look at our figure. 2008. We are at 59.71 under the JLP, so much higher than that country that's recorded. Where are they? Lesotho. So they are 37, which is which is high, but we are at 59 in the corresponding year. So Mexico, we think about drugs, drug cartel. That's not all we think about when it comes down to Mexico. But we have heard about the cartels, the drugs, gangs in Mexico. Their murder rate in 2022 is 26, or it's 53, double Mexico. And if we continue, most of the country, a lot of countries in single digits, and the ones that are in double digits, they're not high double digits, they're in the tens, a few in the 20s, some in the 30s, but most of them are single digits, right? Rwanda, as I hear Rwanda, the Rwanda genocide comes to mind. 2020, they are at 3.59. We are at 46.9, 46.91, so we have doubled them. Uh, so, the number says it all, like 45, South Africa, 2022. South Africa came close, but they still have not beat Jamaica. 2022, we had 53, they had 45. We are 7 or 8 murders per 100,000 more than them. So, number says it all. US Virgin Islands in 2012 are 49.631. What are we? 2012, we're at 39. The US Virgin Islands beat us in 2012. Don't know what's going on there, but this is the first on this list of any year that I've found a country that has beaten Jamaica in any year. US Virgin Islands in 2012. I don't know what that's about. Zimbabwe 6.652. In 6.652 in 2022, we're at 53. So it's like 8 times higher than Zimbabwe. So see if I can find Nigeria here. Nigeria 21.7 in 2019, right? And Nigeria is considered dangerous. So 21.74 in 2019. Let's look at Jamaica's corresponding year. We're at 47.59 under the JLP, right? That's double Nigeria, who's considered a dangerous country. So based on the numbers, we can see that in terms of murder, Jamaica has performed horrendously when compared to other countries. For such a small nation to have Such a high murder rate per 100,000 is something the country we should be ashamed of. Not just the politicians. The politicians, yes, because they come and they talk about crime fighting strategy and blah blah blah. The numbers suggest that it has not been working from 1962 until now. So there's nothing the politicians can do or choose to do about fighting murders in Jamaica. Right? If we look here, we see that in 2022, right, Jamaica had the highest murder rate of any country in the world. 53.34 per 100,000. And the top four are Caribbean countries. We have St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 40.41, Trinidad and Tobago, 39.52. So, what's that? Jamaica's murder rate. Jamaica's always had a problem with its murder rate. I would say, based on the numbers from about 1975 onwards, we hit double digits and we never looked back. From 1975, we hit double digits and we have never looked back since. And that's what Jamaica and the number says. If you found this video useful, please like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel.